Hi, and welcome to my week 4 in review. We are halfway through our time together. I can't believe it. Um, First of all, I want to give some feedback on the discussion posts. Taylor, Leslie had exemplar posts. If you're still struggling for how to format your discussion post. They are posts that you can look at this week. For question one, um, people talked about both technology and engineering being present in early childhood classrooms. However, they are often misunderstood, hidden, unspoken. Um, and then people also spoke about the use of assistive technology in classrooms. Assistive technology being technology for people or children with disabilities to facilitate their learning or communication. And that assistive technology can be hearing aids. So I can't remember who it was now, spoke about hearing aids. Um, and also devices to support communication. Sometimes those are iPads, sometimes they're specialized devices, and sometimes they are just picture exchange systems where children use pictures to communicate. So, yes, technology can be lots of different things. A lot of people talked about high tech when we think about computers and technology that has to be plugged. We talk about plugged technology, but also people talk about unplugged technology, tools, and tape and scissors and crayons and paper and pencil, et cetera, to help children explore their world. And people talked about engineering is a process, which is so true, that involves identifying a problem and developing a plan to solve that problem. And the important piece about engineering is it is iterative, which means we go back and we look at that work, that solution, the planning to solve the problem, and how we are solving it again and again and again until we refine our solution. People talked about the role of teachers in engineering. Teachers as facilitators in the engineering process, and also people also spoke about the need for teachers to have support to work with young children with technology and in engineering. Excuse me. People talked about, for question two, media time. Most people shared that there should be a balance. Technology should be used to support learning. It can be used for documentation. Some people have mandatory tech time per week. One thing I did not see a lot of, people talked about technology. People did not really talk, people talked about apps and things like that and technology being used to support learning. No one really talked about interactive media. People talked about specific programs um, and different programs they use. Here where I am, we use iReady quite often. And we have a program called Amira. I'm going to give you an example. We have a program called Amira that I am a foster parent, and foster children who've lived in our home have used. And some of those foster children have had speech impediments and have had trouble articulating. But Amira is a speech-based and speech perception program. And so, one of the elements that I've noticed about Amira for a child who's in first grade is Amira kept misunderstanding her, the foster child in our home, and kept looping her to indicate that she was answering the question correctly or mispronouncing the word, when actually she was saying it correctly, but she was using it in the way that she speaks. And Mira kept trying to get her to pronounce it differently, which she couldn't do because Amira is not a speech therapist, and she needs her speech therapist to help her do that. Um, so there are limit. I just want to point out there are a lot of limits to technology, and this is something that I had to bring to her speech therapist and her teacher. Anyway, that's a total aside. Um, People for question three, a lot of people talked about using a makerspace or a fix-it station, an engineering and construction studio. Um, and people also talked about having questions to structure that time. There are some children that you can give them materials and say, create and do, and they will, right? They will create and do. And there are some children, and there are some people who need more guidance and more structure and might need some questions and more facilitation in their um, in their creation process. So again, that role of the teacher and how do we facilitate that time and opportunity to engage in tinkering, making, and designing. Um, so thinking about the children that you work with, thinking about who needs what support, right? Thinking about how children learn, thinking about temperaments, all of those things are important when we support your learners in making, tinkering, designing spaces. Um, Ida Lee said, by intentionally designing my environment and schedule, I foster curiosity and help students begin thinking like problem solvers. And I liked the way that she worded that. And again, my only addition would be, in addition to the environment and schedule, sometimes we need to offer some additional scaffolds with questions and supports and inquiries or projects or tasks. And many people identified a variety of engineering mindsets for questions four. And several people focused on the again the iterative need and the need for children to make mistakes and fail and have failure be part of the process. And we saw in many of the sources from this week that failure is an important part of engineering and learning. So for many of the comments for the discussion, I said, what role does failure have in engineering if people didn't note it? Because um, successful engineers will say for every successful project, there are lots of iterations that were less successful, and that's part of the process of engineering and that iteration. Then the reflections and you're tinkering with literacy. Wow, I had so many thoughtful, amazing um, projects that I reviewed. First of all, shout out to Luz, who got special permission from her families to share that she created her Tinkering with Literacy with her students in her class and shared it with us. And that, first of all, that warmed my heart. I loved it. Um, and her book was Goldilocks, and so they had to design a chair for Baby Bear that would withstand Goldilocks. And I just I loved that. I loved so many of the projects. We had projects about a bathtub to keep it from overflowing, a huge turnip that couldn't be lifted from the ground. So, full disclosure, I grew up in a farming community, so I was laughing when I was reading this from, I believe that was from Taylor. I got a good chuckle out of that. About the book with a turnip that was too big to come out of the ground, keeping ducks safe around a pond, aliens who needed to go home to their mom. Oh, that was such an reminded me of E.T., and that's like a tissue movie, a crying movie for me. How to create and build a lantern so that it can send wishes, a lantern that lights so it can send wishes to the sky, which I am recording this video. Tomorrow is the Lunar New Year, and I thought that was so appropriate. Um, how to support a dog to climb a tree because the I don't want to say owner, but their girl climbs the tree and can't bring the dog. So how do we help the dog go up the tree? Ah, and Humpty Dumpty is afraid of heights. So how do we support Humpty to do the things that Humpty enjoys, but not be afraid of heights? The gingerbread person needs to cross the river without being eaten by the fox. So the gingerbread person was big in my home with some foster children who we had recently. A strong house that can withstand wind or the breath of a wolf who's trying to blow it down. Again, the baby bear's chair who broke from Goldilocks. Thank you, Luz. Building a bridge to get across a river. A design competition where people needed to collaborate. Fish that live at the bottom of the aquarium. A boat sturdy enough to hold five occupants, five rather large occupants. Cocoons for butterflies and alternatives to an eraser. These were the design challenges that you created. So thank you so much for your thoughtful books and your thoughtful tasks and the challenges you posed, the pictures you shared, the processes that you engaged in. Oh, now someone built a tree to go with the pulley for the dog, which was amazing. And someone else built oh, we had also Henny Penny, the sky is falling. And so had a someone built a whole to keep Henny Penny safe to get to the king, to tell them the sky is falling, built like the whole forest, along with the wagon, right? The wagon that Henny Penny needed, but the whole forest with everything labeled. I appreciate your creativity and the wholeheartedness that you put into this. Um, I thank Luz for sharing this with her students, but can't wait. I wish I could be with each and every one of you when you introduce these design challenges to your future students, whether they are in your classrooms now or will be in years to come, because I hope they bring you the joy that you brought me while I was reading I was reading your submissions. I hope you have a great afternoon. If you celebrate the Lunar New Year tomorrow, Happy New Year. If you celebrate Ramadan that starts this week, I hope you have easy fasts during the day. And wishing everyone a wonderful week. Be well.